So I thought I'd make a little video and talk a little bit about this Fortunate Findings quilt that I am creating using Findings, my new collection, and Grace, my collection that just came out. So I decided to create a piece that was about my journey, my past, I would say 3.5, almost 4 years, and how I've found my creativity again, how I am finding self-love and my grounding and all the good and bad that comes with it. So I decided to do something different. I didn't want to make something that was going to, I'm going to have to like write a pattern for, right? I've been doing a lot of painting these past several months. And it's been a great way for me to get in touch with my feelings and express myself. And so I decided that this is an opportunity for me to experiment with painting with fabric. I'm pretty smart about how to put things together. I've been quilting for years, and I watch my mom, who is a great influence in improvisational piecing. And I have had several great influences over the years that I have gained knowledge from, taken tips from. So I put up a couple pieces of large butcher paper on my design wall, about the size I wanted the quilt. And I sat down and just started drawing lines and shapes, and I had a idea of what I wanted to express through the piecing and through the fabric itself, because the fabric has been a huge part of my healing process and my growth and becoming who I am now. And as we are always growing and becoming who we are, who we are at the moment. And so I really had this like feelings, and I could feel what I wanted this piece to look like. So I did what I do when I paint, put my earbuds in, and I just felt, and I just drew shapes and lines and feelings, and with the intention of thinking of my journey and where I've been. So in that process, I will share with you the first sketching part, and then I refined the lines because my sketching there was no way I could piece it. So, because you have to think of the engineering aspect of making these quilts. You can't just willy-nilly draw and think that you're gonna be able to piece that. As I do want to do most of this in piecing, some of it may have to be appliqued just based on the reality. So once I did the pencil drawing kind of refinement, then I took a Sharpie to it, and it still feels like a logistical nightmare to a certain extent, but I know how to break it down. I know how to like start breaking down parts into manageable things to sew together, which is your, as my mom calls it, your engineering hat. So I had my artist design hat on when I sketched all this out. You know, the freedom of creativity and curiosity and experimentation. And then as I was drawing and refining it, in comes the engineering hat, the hat that says, how are we going to piece this? How are you going to interpret these feelings and these emotions into fabric and into piecing? So I'm at that place now where I have refined, and here is the piece. Oh, it's kind of hard angle to get at, sorry. Here's the piece so far. Now, as always, the beauty of doing things like this is that it will change. And I expect it to. And there's actually an excitement to see what changes, like what starts not working based on having to pull in these, what do I have, like 25, I think, SKUs of fabric. So how am I going to incorporate grace and findings into this? So this is the next challenge, my next engineering slash color alchemist challenge. So here we go. I'm off to that, and I will do a video as I progress and carry on to the next chapter, which will be breaking this down into pieces and how I'm going to cut the paper apart and use it as my templates for my fabric. All right, here we go. Wish me luck. Hi, everyone. All right, so update on my Fortunate Findings quilt and kind of like the steps that I'm at. So to engineer this and figure out how it's all to go together, it takes me some time to like start breaking down the parts and seeing where I can sew these together and I can create this shape, and then I can create this shape over here, and then I can sew them together, and eventually it just gets bigger and bigger, right? So in the meantime, I'm also thinking a lot about how I'm going to move all the color and all the different designs throughout this, and how do I want to use color to interpret my feelings in this piece, and where do I want it to be light and airy, and where do I want it to feel grounded, and all of that stuff. So what I've been doing is taking small little bits of fabric and kind of putting it up there and pinning it, and just so I can get an idea. And once I have established like the parts that I'm gonna break apart, so to speak, I'll mark them and then dive in. So as you can see, I've been putting some fabrics up that I know like where I want some of these pieces and how to move the color through this. And then I'll start using a marker to mark different pieces that'll go together. And within that, I'll make like registration marks. And the registration marks will allow me, when I'm sewing them together, to know where to line those pieces up. Because with all these curves and weird things, you got to know that, you know, your fabric's not going to be in a straight line to sew it. So you have these curves. So you need registration marks to pin appropriately. So that's kind of where we're at right now. It's exciting. I'm really excited about this, and I can't wait. It's like figuring out where to start, but I kind of have to work through these other processes to get to that place to actually start sewing. So here we go. Next part. Have a great day. Oh my goodness. I'm on to the last seam of this quilt. First off, I'm gonna say I have never pieced anything like this before, and it has been fascinating. I'll talk more in depth about that later, but for right now, I'm on a huge celebratory moment that I'm on my last seam. Granted, this is a very important seam, and it is, I'm just like, okay, you've been accurate so far. Everything has really worked. There's no reason this shouldn't work. So my last seam will be inserting, so here's my background. We'll be inserting this into the center. So now this may take me like 30 minutes or so, but this is very exciting. So I had to share the before the last seam, and then I'll talk about what I learned on this quilt. So many things, so many good things. So anyway, here we go. Have a great day. Hello, everyone. I am coming to you today to share the finished and complete Coming Home quilt. I've decided to call it Coming Home because it truly is about coming back to oneself for me and my story, and you know, all those things that we work on, all the things that make us feel better about ourselves, create more confidence and self-love. That's what I'm looking for. So this quilt was a really, really amazing journey for me in construction. I knew I was capable of it, and I learned a lot about the diligence in the prep work that I needed to do, that the more accurate I was with marking and cutting and then pinning, my sewing was like a breeze. I know I am not the most accurate seamstress or quilter, and I know this about myself. So I had to give myself as many opportunities along the way to be accurate, because otherwise this wasn't going to fit together. So there's a lot that went into the patience and the prep work, because the actual sewing, wasn't that long when it's organized and tight and precise. It's like butter, right? So here she is, finished. I'm gonna give you a full view, and then I'll grab the camera so you can see up close. I did a little hand stitching, and just for some elements to it, I wanted to have some of that. I love the intimacy of hand stitching and or hand quilting, that you are very much in a state of slow, thoughtful sort of movement and practice. And so I think that was really important for me to include into this whole piece. So here it is. Pretty happy with this whole thing. It's not straight, as I'm not very straight sometimes. So I did a facing on it because I wanted to keep the shape that it ended up being, because I liked the way it felt. I liked the proportions. So we're gonna go up close and see a little bit of this. All right. Most of the stitching I added was in here. You can see some in here and along this main kind of indigo vein. Added some gold because I really wanted to highlight, as much as it was already such an important design element within this piece, because it really brings your eye around. I also wanted to highlight it with this, gold thread in this sort of contrasting sort of vibe. And when it's hand stitched, it looks a little bit different. So here is some of the piecing work I did, and there's some more stitching up there in the corner. But I'm really happy with it. It was super fun and such a great challenge. And it's one of those pieces that I get done, and I have to say I'm really proud of myself for trying something I haven't tried before. Or at least not like this, right? Like, I've done small pieces and understood the concept of creating a quilt like this, and obviously had thought through the process. So, but then to actually do it, it feels like there's a new spark for me for some other new work I want to do with fabric, that, taking that risk and creating something different or trying something new seems to have opened up this whole box of possibilities and confidence in the fact that I could do that. So this is my Coming Home quilt. Thanks for hanging out and watching the process and being a part of my journey. Love y'all so much. Have a great day. Bye.